I'm Andrew Patterson from interest.co.nz. Welcome to another in our Business Success series. Today I'm with Hamish McLachlan, Executive Director at Konnect. Hi Hamish.
Hi Andrew, nice to have you here at Konnect, and looking forward to talking with you today.
Hamish, tell us a bit about the idea behind Konnect. Who identified it, and what was the gap in the market that you were seeking to fill?
Look, I think it was back in 2008, and it was two other colleagues of mine, one that I'd known from a previous relationship in the corporate world. The three of us got together, and we both had these experiences of inefficient processing and very difficult to deploy new products out into the marketplace. And so we thought maybe there's a better way that we could do it, and it seemed to be easier to try and achieve that from the outside rather than from the inside. So I think those backgrounds, had come up more out of the banking sector, Murray had come more out of insurance, and Peter more from the IT space. And we looked at some of the problems specifically in the insurance sector, where there was an awful lot of paper-based processing, and it seemed to be ripe, if you like, to create improvement in. And so we started engaging in 2008 with some prospective clients, and started to share some of our ideas on how they could perhaps improve those processes or improve some of the way they distributed product in the market. And coming out of that, those conversations, we found that the burning issue, if you like, was certainly for the life and income protection providers, was the interactions between them during their underwriting and claims processes and the health sector. And that was done in a sort of very inefficient, very non-standardised way. And if we could go about trying to solve that problem first, then that would be a really good starting point.
So just to explain a little bit about what it is you actually do, how do you interact between the insurer and the health system, I guess, itself?
So Konnect is we don't, for a start, we don't sell software, but what we've ended up doing is building a whole lot of systems, if you like, with platforms for each of our user groups, so that they can communicate and share information between each other in a very efficient and standardised way. So we're a process management provider, but a full service provider, primarily to the insurer.
And that creates a benefit for them because obviously it firstly standardises the process, but it also saves them some cost.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you just perhaps sort of think about it from a sort of a purely a practical transaction type, if you think of an underwriter gets an application form from a client, they look at that, they have to assess what the risk of that application is for that client. And in a lot of cases, they need to go and get additional medical information to support that underwriting decision. Now, what we do is enable you're sitting at your desk, you've got the Konnect system up on your screen, and you can go and request that information in a very simple, easy way. So as soon as you submit your application form, it's going directly to the doctor that you've asked that information from. So it's a point-to-point transfer of the request, and likewise that doctor on the other receiving end, they're opening the same system. It's filling in or pre-populating the information that's been asked, allowing them to review it and amend it very easily and submit it back to that underwriter.
What process did you have to go through to understand? And it's interesting that the innovation has come from outside, not within the insurance sector. So I guess that's perhaps a story on how outsiders can bring that value-add process in a situation like this.
Well, I think a lot of process improvement is done sort of from inside out, so incremental improvements to processes. And sometimes it's very difficult to make that leap, if you like, to a completely new way of thinking about doing something. So Konnect was in that very fortunate position as we're independent, coming at it from the outside in. What we did at the beginning was get a lot of doctors together, a lot of underwriters together, start to think about what are the true issues that they're facing, because often they didn't necessarily understand each other's problems. So getting a really good understanding of what the problem was to be solved first was obviously very important. Then we managed to completely re-engineer the way it could work to get both sides to think about it in a sort of a slightly different way. And by doing that, everyone was a winner. We were improving both, giving benefits to both parties.
Did you find there was a willingness to engage in that process?
Look, I think there's always scepticism, sometimes initially. We had a very deep knowledge of both the insurance and the health sectors, or the health information sector rather than the health sector in general. So, I think that helped build, we managed to steer that conversation. And it was about we were almost brokering collaboration between groups to end up with the best outcome.
So tell us about the before and after story and the reaction that you've had, particularly because of the success you've achieved in a relatively short period of time.
Yes, well, I think that first service we put out there, which was the health interface for the insurer, was called SureMed. And the performance improvements coming off the back of SureMed have just been huge. You were talking about a sort of a 25-day plus turnaround for a transaction to an average now of 6 or 7. So that's actually a dramatic improvement on an average. We've now got nearly every insurer in the country using that service. We engage with every health provider, either in an electronic or in paper sense. So you've seen not just an improvement in speed, you've seen an improvement in the costs of processing have gone down significantly, and I think off the back of that you end up driving better conversion rates because lower turnaround time in a transaction means people are more likely to end up buying the product they were in the first place.
So how does the business model actually work? Do you get a percentage of every transaction?
Well, the business model was probably the key to our success here, really. So it's very much about a pay-as-you-go type model, pay per transaction, rather than pay for a whole lot of upfront setup fees and a whole lot of customisation to meet my need. So Konnect's borne the cost of setting up the infrastructure, building the infrastructure, and then it gets a return for, I guess, managing the infrastructure, making sure it works properly, making sure that transactions are processed as effectively as possible, and making sure that ongoing improvements are continually being made.
And what about in the competitive space? I mean, this is unique IP that you have created, but one assumes there's fairly low barriers for entry for others to come in and try and compete.
Well, look, I think when you look at our broader range of services, so it's not just about a health interface. We've now looked at, we've got a front-end sales distribution capability that enables customers to sell product across multiple channels. That links in nicely when you need additional medical information. And now a claims module that's obviously the next step. Once you've sold a product, you need to be able to manage claims off the back of that. Now, when you look across all of them, there are obviously competitors that do either parts of the process very well or have a slightly different business model that's very unique in that space. Now, what we've tried to do is look at a full end-to-end model that can bring benefits to all parties across the entire process, but at the same time allow a customer perhaps just to select one component of what we offer and just do that, because there's no one size fits all here. And I think that was probably part of the problem when we first looked at it. It was there's no one silver bullet here that's going to solve everyone's problems, but we can end up driving consistent improvement by doing bits better and better and better. And the more people we have working through our network, the more efficiency we can bring to all parties who are part of it. So what we're effectively doing here is providing sort of a scale benefit to all parties all communities effectively that link into our end-to-end process.
Is there a possibility of extending the business into other areas if it's worked so successfully in health? Are there other applications within the insurance sector that it could also apply to?
Oh, very much. So like if we started focusing on the life and risk product space. But when you're engaging and selling products to clients, there's often a mortgage being sold or a fire and general product being sold, and a lot of the elements or the information required to complete the applications for those are very similar. So what our processes or tools do is enable to help cross-sell product much more effectively.
And growth for you, I mean, you've pretty well achieved a full penetration of the New Zealand market, and you've done that in a relatively short space of time, about 3 years. You've started moving into the Australian market, so you can just continue to keep picking off these markets. And how much more complicated does it become the bigger the market gets?
Look, I think it's always difficult when you first start off. We started with 3 people, and so you've got to build up credibility. And so as we grow, it's about building services. Now, our initial service, yes, it has had a very significant take-up, but now we're building on those relationships with those customers and putting more of our services into them to add more value to them. Now, as we extend into other markets, there's different ways of entering those markets, off your existing relationships. For example, a lot of insurers in New Zealand have relationships in the Australian market, so entering those markets through those customers, or providing sort of more targeted going in off the back of one of our services into those markets. So trying to more of a niche play into the Australian market or beyond.
And in terms of refining the process and innovating and keeping it up to date, obviously you have to be pretty responsive to the needs of your clients. They, to a certain extent, I'm sure, drive the innovation process, do they?
Look, our whole business model is about collaboration, and that is probably the key reason we've been successful. So it's about listening to what are the key issues that your customers have, and not just your customers, the users of those services. And if we can solve or give a benefit to everyone who interacts with us and can show that we're listening and improving it all the time, then you get more and more buy-in. And the more buy-in you get, the more efficient your services become.
Many of the businesses we've spoken to in this series in the technology space have identified staff recruitment as a big challenge. Is that been challenging for you as well too?
Yes, I think it is. When you're younger and you only have a small number of people, you often find you're bringing people at the back of your own relationships, for example. We've grown our team in New Zealand now to around 60. You need more and more specialised teams, so it just becomes harder and harder to get hold of the right people to build your business up. And I think when you're small, every new hire is a really important hire. You're trying to build the right culture within your team, and so you've got to make sure you do bring on those right people. So we've got a very different approach perhaps to what other businesses may have. We're very innovative in our thinking. Everyone that comes in has a very strong responsibility to add value in everything that we do. And we encourage everyone to put forward all their ideas and help shape the direction we're going in.
And what sort of capabilities are you primarily looking for in a business like this?
Well, look, there's probably 3 or 4 sort of key areas that we work in. So there's a front end sort of business development and account management type function where we're working with customers. There's more of an operational type skill base where we've got people actually managing transactions, talking with clients every day to make sure those transactions run really smoothly. And then there's developing systems. So we have a fairly significant part of our business is around development and continuing to build new services for new markets.
Has the extent of your growth surprised you, how quickly you have grown?
Look, I think between Peter, Murray and I, we were always very, very strong and focused on our vision. And we absolutely believed we could do what we set out to do. So it's always nice to realise some of those visions, but I don't think we're necessarily surprised that we are where we are, because there was such a hole there. It was a void to be filled, and we managed to implement our vision relatively effectively.
So your growth from this point is only constrained by your ability to find the resources quickly enough to achieve it.
Look, I think every time you go into a new market, it's a little bit like starting from scratch again. We've got some really good proof points in New Zealand and Australia, but we're still a small company. And I think persistence, continuing to drive, staying true to your vision is really, really important. And you do need, there's time involved as well. We've got to build relationships, we're building trust. So yes, we're trying to drive fast growth, but sometimes there's a whole lot of constraints out there that it's not just about bringing on more people, putting more money into a business. It's actually about trying to make sure when you go into a new area or a new service area, a new market, that you're doing that in a really cohesive way, or in a way that gets buy-in from all the people that you're engaging with.
Just on that trust point, confidentiality must be a big issue for you.
It was probably one of the major issues that faced the sector when certainly when it was sharing medical information. And so what we really focused on, one of our major propositions was really locking down that information so no one else could see it. So security and privacy of information is absolutely core to our ethos, if you like.
And just finally, what kind of goals have you set yourself for the next 3 to 5 years as a business?
Look, we do have some pretty aggressive goals. We were quite successful last year in raising a whole lot of new growth capital for the business. We've set that aside to expand not just our service offering, but it's offshore growth is where we're really going to get traction. So we're heavily focused on that at the moment. We've had some early successes this year in the Australian market, and I suppose building off the back of that as we move into some of the other Asian markets is some of our big focus for 2013.
How did that capital raising go for you? Because that's another issue businesses talk about, the ability to access the capital. Was that easy enough to find?
Look, again, raising money is, it's never that easy, and our approach has always been perhaps raise it when you need it, so we could retain ownership of the business. And we've raised it as we've hit each milestone point. So then we were, again, come back to that trust or credibility. We were hitting our milestones. It became easier to, when you went for the next round of capital raising, it was easy to settle that. So last year was, we started to bring in some larger shareholders, and the bigger the shareholder, with the bigger the amount of money you're raising, the higher the hurdles, the higher the tougher the process, if you like, to get through that capital round.
And most satisfying aspect of being a part of this business from the start?
Oh, look, we're immensely proud of our people and the business and what it's been able to achieve. And it's just really fantastic to be a part of what we can see as just changing the way a whole lot of organisations work. And we just want to continue to be part of that ongoing process improvement.
So Hamish, obviously a business that's growing incredibly rapidly, and one that you still see plenty of potential for in the future.
Oh, very much so. Look, I think we've only just scratched the surface of what we can achieve. So we're really looking forward to the next couple of years as we expand into offshore markets.